a cannabis. How would I have cannabis in my bag? This is not the type of person that you're talking to. Because as a journalist, I believe I should be doing following the law, and that was the kind of response or words that I was having from them. Because to me, the way I saw the whole thing was like they were just trying to get something out of me from nowhere. Because in the first place, I thought they were only stationed to guard the embassies of the People's Republic of China, not to even go after people on the streets.
You said you later identified yourselves to them that you were a journalist. Was this before or after they assaulted you?
Before they assaulted me, because look, in that period, in the 2000s or 1900s or whatever, when you talk to a police officer, you even tell them you are a journalist, would create more problem than solution. Because the then government has always been saying journalists as, in quote, state enemies. And being someone who was working for the independent newspaper, of course, I wouldn't be spared, because independent was one of the most critical private newspapers that had always been facing trouble when it comes to publishing news, especially with the authorities.
You mentioned that they were guarding the Chinese embassy, which was close to your office. Prior to that day, did you ever have any interaction with them?
I never had any interaction with them, but I always passed them there, because I've always been crisscrossing that highway towards Kairaba Avenue, coming into Independent, going to Radio 1. I mean, so I was a frequent, how to call it, a pedestrian that moves back and forth along that road.
You said it was around 11 to 12 p.m. Apart from
Yes.
the guards that were there, was there anyone around that day?
No, around 11 p.m. in that area is usually quiet, because it's sort of a little bit isolated, and as you know, by that time, a lot of people will be preparing to go to bed, if not even if they are not already in bed. So nothing much was going on around. So it was only cars and security guards on their posts, work doing their duties as usual.
Since you mentioned that you've been seeing them there while walking back and forth from
Yeah.
from your office to your home,
Yeah.
were you able to recognize any of those officers that assaulted you?
Actually, it was at night, and having suffered that kind of situation with them, I wouldn't be in a better position to recognize them facially, because, as I said, it was at night, and usually the the the, the lights in the on the fence outside of the embassy weren't that much bright. So, and there are a lot of sort of small trees surrounding the embassy, or flowers, I guess. So I was unable to recognize them facially.
You had also mentioned that they slapped and beat you up.
Yeah.
For how long did that last?
It's like like 2 minutes, because as they were beating me, I was yelling loud on my voice, and at some extent they felt kind of frightened with the way I was uh, yelling loud on my voice. So I think this is what made them stop. And considering the fact that I also told them that I was a journalist, and when they were beating me on the process, I told them that you are beating me, but I will tell my media to make sure that they expose you guys, and you will be seen the incident on the newspaper. So that was the main reason why they even stopped. Because at the time when you mentioned the independent newspaper to government officials or security uh, agents, they always feel frightened because they know the to like the magnitude of of stories that we publish and the weight it carries. So they were very careful because I could remember in my career, in the course of my career, I even wrote certain articles that led to the sacking of certain political appointees.
Can you please describe how and where they were beating you?
No, actually, they were only beating me on my face. On my face, that's it. No other place.
After that incident, did you report the matter to the police?
No, I didn't. I think my superiors took it to that level, but nothing was done. Simply because I was not even interested to go further with because I cannot go and report a thief to his boss or a thief to himself, simply because they were the police and they are the very people that I had to report to. And as I said, considering uh, the the way independent was perceived, nobody cared because look, a thief cannot judge himself and lock himself up. So this was the reason why I decided not to even bother. And I was even told I met a pathologist person who even advised me to uh, do a test so that he will write me a report to take them to court. But it was just gonna be a fruitless battle because at the time we all know everything was controlled by the executive. So they go by orders and they can do nothing else apart from uh, uh, following orders from the executive. So I felt that it wasn't even necessary, but this story would serve as a deterrent for them not to repeat such actions, and it stopped there. I mean, from those guys at the Chinese embassy, even though I had some other difficulties along the way.
We'll get to those very soon. Just focusing
Yeah,
on that particular incident, you mentioned that you think your superiors reported the matter to the
yeah.
police. How sure are you that they actually did report the matter to the police?
No, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they must have taken up the matter. I'm not 100% sure, but they were very furious, and knowing the kind of person I am, they've always defended me when I was in such kind of situations. So this is why I believe that they must have at least taken some steps. But mine was even minor because the arson attacks and other incident has been there. The police knew and they never did nothing about it. So I felt I believe they must have taken some actions in one way or the other. I'm not 100% sure though. It's just an assumption.
Apart from taking that particular route to address what happened to you, did your paper do anything else with respect to what happened to you?
Uh, I can recall them doing anything about it. They only had to be following up with me whenever I go out, asking me whether I encounter anything, kind of harassments with them. I just tell them no because it never happened again.
After that particular incident, did you feel safe working as a journalist with The Independent?
Yeah, I was not 100% safe, feeling safe, but the fact that my superiors gave me the assurance that they are behind me, they will support me, whatsoever may be the case. I had the courage to continue as a young man because this is what I love, what I chose to do, as I said. and I love it to the core. So I felt that, look, this is just a start. I think I should just be ready to face it, because there is nothing easy in this life. No matter what kind of easy job you do, even the food you eat, you use energy to eat it, and energy costs you something. You get tired along the way or whatsoever. So it is what is it. That's life. So I had the courage to continue because they gave me the assurance.
You also told us that during those days it was not easy working with the independent paper. Apart from your own
Yeah.
incident, are you aware of any other incidents surrounding independence or its employees?
Yeah, actually, I remember that we had an incident that was an arson attack on the independent newspaper. And on that day, there was this guy that was working for Uncle Sam Security. I could vividly recall his name was Madi Sise, not Madi Sise, the former GPU president. It's a different Madi Sise. So when they came, they were police officers, in plain clothes. They came and identified themselves as police officers. I think they were four in number. So they were asking questions, started chatting with the guy. All of a sudden, they came with this. The guard saw another officer came with a bottle filled with inflammable liquid, let's say gasoline or kerosene, for instance. And then they had an attack on the newspaper parents because they wanted to stop a publication that was supposed to come the following day. So they were unable to get access to the office itself, but they succeeded in burning part of the electric meter that was outside, just to handicap the offices, so that we wouldn't be able to publish. They would stop us from publication. And I remember that guard was rushed to the RVH, where he was treated for like 3 or few days, and he was uh, he was released. But as I said, it was reported to the police. Nothing came out of it. I cannot report myself and then try myself, jail myself. So that was not possible at that moment. So I don't know after that how it went, but this is an incident that happened sometime in October.
Can you tell us the year this incident happened?
I think it's around the same year, in the same year, 2003, because there was a sequence of incidents in that year, which followed another arrest on the editor in chief, the then editor in chief, who was called Abdullah C. So it was like barely that was like barely few months after I was assaulted.
You stated that the incident with respect to your assault occurred sometime in August
Yes.
2003.
Yeah.
And this particular
It's either
incident happened.
sorry. Yeah, it's either before or after August. I cannot recall exactly, but it's either before or after August.
That's okay. If you can't remember, it's
Yeah,
okay.
sorry about it. Yeah, because this has been a very long time, so I can't recall some of these dates, especially those kind of incidents.
Thank you very much. With respect to this particular incident, you mentioned one Madi Sise, who you say was a
Yeah,
security guard at the Standard.
at the Independent, he
Sorry,
was contracted. He
my
we
apologies for that.
he yeah, he was a contractor. He was a contracted security guard that worked for Uncle Sam Security.
Thank you
Like,
very much.
yeah,
Can you please tell us what actually happened to Madi? Because you said later on he was
yeah,
admitted at the hospital.
Yeah, he was admitted at the hospital, and after 3 days he was discharged. But I never after that I never had any information regarding the case or whatsoever uh, at the police level.
Were you present when this incident occurred?
Actually, I was not because it was around midnight, and by then I was already home, close from work. So we came the following day, and then colleagues who were informed, like the bosses, your and others, explained to us this was the situation, and we just took it as at that, and it was their part. It was their responsibility as senior management to deal with the case at the police level and whatsoever action they wanted to take. But as I said, it was always a fruitless battle for you to go after the police who had already who committed crime against you, because a thief cannot judge and jail himself.
Do you know who were responsible for this attack on your people?
They, they were identified as policemen.
Can you tell us who identified them as policemen?
The guard, because they told the guard that they were like police officers, and then that's how it started.
The guard
Because
you told. Sorry, you can go on.
yeah the reason why the incident happened one was because there were security guards, like other agency guards that were posted stationed in other offices around that vicinity. When they heard him shouting loud on his voice, yelling loud on his voice, they decided to come in to the scene. So that was the time they left. The police officers left. So this is what helped him. Been been it would have been worse, because he on the process he even sustained some injuries. That's why he was admitted at the RVH.
Do you know what kind of injuries he sustained?
No, he sustained some wounds on the face and the head.
Do you know what was responsible for those wounds?
Beatings. He was beaten by by the assailants.
Do you know approximately what time of the day this incident occurred, given that you were
It
only
was
aware
around
of it in the morning?
yeah, it was around midnight.
Apart from
Around
this,
midnight on October 17th that year, 2003.
sorry, can you repeat that again?
Around midnight on October 17th.
Sorry, I'm seeing that you're looking at something while speaking to me. Can you please tell us what you're looking at? Is it something to help you refresh your memory or what?
Yeah. I'm just looking at the statement that I've written and submitted to you prior to this testimony. So I'm just to get the dates correct. That's why I'm just looking at it.
Thank you very much. With respect to this particular arson attack on the Standard, was this the only attack that the Standard suffered from?
The Independent. Uh,
My apologies. I have Standard in my head
or
today. I don't know why.
yeah, yeah, it's all right. Okay, there was another attack uh, on the printing press of the Independent newspaper. But prior to the attack, I think barely a month after the first arson attack, they arrested Abdullah C, who was the editor in chief. They arrested Abdullah C and then detained him at the NIA. After a few days, they released him. they released him from detention. I don't know what followed after the arrest and detention of Mr. Abdullah C. But I believe his arrest had to do with the editorial policies of the independent newspaper, because we had always insisted on reporting independently and giving the public the news as we got it.
Do you know for how long Abdullah C was detained when he was arrested?
I cannot recall exactly, but it was like a few days. It might be like 2 to 3 days detention, because usually most of the time when they used to arrest the editors, they come during the weekend, get all of them, and then most of the usually they spend the weekend in cells, NIA cells.
What was the position of Abdullah C at the independent paper?
He was the editor in chief at the time.
Apart from that particular incident, were there other incidents that happened?
Yeah, we had this guy in 2006, another arson attack on the independent newspaper press that was located somewhere in Canifin Industrial Estate. There were like a few police officers. I think there were like 6 men that came to the printing press, and then randomly started shooting. And one of them was having a gallon filled with 5-liter gallon filled with inflammable liquid that he poured on the printing press, that I could vividly recall, and then set the machine alight just to stop a publication that was supposed to come out the following day. And along the process, during that incident, one of the assailants suffered some burns, and they managed to pick him up and then threw him into the pickup they left. According to Namori Ture, who used to be the manager of the independent printing press then. And they also found a gun when they left. One of them, when they were leaving, one of them left a gun, a pistol, that was handed over to the police authorities. And I think the then police IG was Landing Baji, who even came to the scene, but after that, nothing was done about it.
That particular arson attack you're talking about, do you know if anyone was present on that day in the printing office?
Yeah, Namori Tarawale, whom I said was the one managing the press, was there with few others. I don't know the exact number of workers that were there. By then, they were printing one of the issues that was supposed to be published the following day. So he was one of them that was in the printing press, and when they came in fact, they even had to hide. They even had to hide themselves to avoid being penetrated by the bullets.
Mr. Jame, can you please look towards this direction when you're talking, and just leave the statement. Just try to speak from your memory. It's okay if you can't remember a few details. We know that it's been a while since these incidents occurred.
All right.
Thank you very much. Now, going back to that incident, you mentioned that Namori Ture and other staffs were there.
Namori Tarawale was.
Thank you very much. Namori Tarawale and other staffs as well were there, and they were hiding, trying to avoid being shot at.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that the assailants that came tried to burn down the place?
They burned it down. They succeeded in burning down the machine.
Do you know what happened to the people that were in the building?
Actually, none of them suffered injuries or whatsoever. Is their own is the one of the members of the attackers that suffered some injury because he was the one having the gasoline, the 5 liter bottle that was having the gasoline to set the machine alight. So when they shot at the machine and the fire came up, he eventually caught up the fire and sustained some burns. They had to even use some to put off the fire to be able to hold on to him and then throw him into the pickup, according to Namole Tarawale and other staffs who were working there at the time.
You also mentioned that their intention was to stop a publication that was to be printed out for the next day. Do you know what that publication was?
If I could vividly recall, that publication, I think, had to do with a report of a commission of inquiry that has to do with some alleged human rights violations. And this was when they got a tip off that this thing was coming. I don't know how they managed to get that information. This was one of the reasons why they attacked the press. And Independent being one of the private papers that had no that wouldn't even have a second thought to publish certain critical issues. Obviously, they would do their best to make sure that they handicap the paper to stop those kind of informations being relayed to the public for consumption.
You said the intention was to handicap the paper to prevent the publication from coming out. Did they actually succeed in doing that?
Yeah, that issue never came out because even if they had succeeded in printing the paper without the following day, we even never had the time to think about the news that was supposed to come out. Instead, we were all in solidarity to try to sympathize our colleagues and then look forward to see how best the authorities were going to react to it. As I said, the IG was informed, and the most interesting thing about it was like there is a police intervention camp just few miles away from that. It was not even more than 5 miles away from the printing press, but they never came. After they came much late in the latter part, but with the IG came with a team, who was Landing Baji. He just made some few remarks that it was uncalled for, but nothing came out of it. Nothing came out of it. But along the way, there was rumors. As you know, journalists, we always have sources that the guy that caught fire during the incident was identified as Khalifa Bajinka, if I could recall, and he was taken to Mile 2 for treatment. Later, they transferred him to Kanilai, where he was stationed at until he was able to heal.
Do you know who this Khalifa Bajinka was?
The Khalifa Bajinka that I knew, in fact, I guess he is deceased now, but he used to work for the Gambia National Army.
Was there a special unit that he worked for in the army?
I believe, he was one of the state guard. I think at some point he was state guard commander.
Can you please tell us the extent of the damage that was done as a result of the fire on the building, that is?
The building was not damaged, but the equipment, like the machine itself, was totally damaged. Was totally burned down. It after that incident, the machine cannot function anymore. I don't know what they did, whether they were trying to procure a new one or, but that one was no more functioning after that incident because everything was burned down.
You've already told us that they succeeded in ensuring that the publication that was to come out did not come out. How long did it
Yeah.
take the paper to recover from that damage?
Uh, Actually, I think we managed to publish because prior to having a printing press, we were contracting the Ahmadiyya printing press to print our publications, and we had to resort back to the same uh, remedy, the same place to be able to continue publication.
The date you've given us for this particular incident is 2006, but according to our records that was provided by the GPU, this incident occurred in 2004.
Yeah, it was around that end. Some of these dates are too has been a long time, but I could recall the incidents, but I can't recall exactly some of these dates and years because after the incidents, the bosses took it over. They were directly dealing with the situation. We were only responsible for making sure that we get the right news for them to continue having the independent newspaper published.
Apart from the one of the assailant being burnt by the fire, were there any other clues left by the assailants?
No, apart from the gun, nothing was left. There was a gun that was left behind, and it was handed over to the IGP, as I said when he came to the side. But nothing was done after that. Nothing was done because we had suspected that that gun would not have come from any other place apart from the military or police.
Why was there that suspicion that the gun wouldn't have come from any other source rather than the police or
Oh,
the military?
yeah, actually, Gambia, for instance, certain sophisticated guns cannot be handled by civilians or whatsoever. And at that particular time, it will be very difficult for a civilian to even have those kind of firearms, considering the hostile environment that the then government never tolerated people going public with arms out because I've seen a lot of incidents where people were charged with those kind of charges going armed in public. So obviously, an ordinary civilian wouldn't be able to have those kind of things and then going around in town with those kind of weapons.
The
This is where
incidents,
this is what we base our assumption on, and it turns out to be somehow true because if it were owned by a private citizen, obviously the police should have been in a better position to say, "Hey, let's look at this thing." But if it belongs to them, how would they? They wouldn't even bother to investigate themselves,
thank you very much. My
as it
apologies
as
for
it has.
almost cutting you.
Yeah, it's all
These
right.
incidents that you've mentioned, did it
Mhm.
have any effect on journalists? For example, journalists working on the standard, did it have any effects on their morals?
On the independent.
And
Yeah, you see, it somehow, in one way or the other, would have some effects. I know I've been I chat with colleagues at the Independent sometime. I had a lot of friends because we usually when we have such kind of incident, we'll be sitting and everybody is gonna be talking to each other. And some people had concerns. I personally had some concerns because I was like, this is getting much serious, and this is something that I love to do. And I was questioning myself, where would I head to? What would I do next if I am to leave journalism, something that I already started and come all this way? So these are some of the questions, but I particularly was asking myself. And I remember, in fact, at some point, my family told me to stop being a journalist. I said, well, would you be I started asking them questions whether they would be happy if they had to sit until the end of the month and I don't give them allowance, as it is the tradition back home. When you are grown up and you work and you have to take care of your parents and loved ones. They said no. Then I said, well, this is what I love to do. Even if I am supposed to be killed by a bullet on my bed, if it is destined to be, I will die. I will be shot and I'll die by the bullet. So let me just continue doing this thing for God's sake. And some of them understood me, but uh, they still had some worries. And that in one way or the other continued to haunt me, because I was like, why would I follow something that I love to hurt the feelings of my loved ones and my family?
After these incidents, did you continue working at the Independent?
Yes, I continue working as at the Independent as a reporter, and most of the time I was covering the courts. Um, and at some point, I think in March 2006, that was in the aftermath of the fuel coup. Uh, I remember going to work on on one of the days in the morning, and then I when I came to the office, realized that the office was closed down. Some of my colleagues were standing outside, and I asked. They were like, they invaded us again. I said, who? They said the police. So they've arrested a few people. So I was in a position to escape, but I said, you know what? Since it is a fight, it is a struggle that we all started together, and it has come to this was, I will have to surrender myself and I get arrested too. So I would want to see what happens to my colleagues. If we are dying, if they are dying, I want to die with them. So I got arrested along with all the staffs at the Independent newspaper. That was the the closer that came to the closer of Independence since then to date. And I remember when the Independent was closed, we were arrested alongside with Madi Cisse, who was then the president of the Gambia Press Union, at the same time the managing editor of the Independent newspaper. And Musa Sedikan was the editor in chief. We were all arrested together with another reporter called Lamin Fati. But after a brief questioning at the paramilitary police intervention unit headquarters in Kanifing, all the staffs were released except Sedikan, Madi, and Lamin Fati, who spent some time in detention at the NIA.
Did they tell you the reason for your arrest when they were arresting you? Did they tell you the reason for your arrest?
Yeah, the arrest had to do with a publication that was made on the Independent about the former interior minister's involvement in the fuel coup, who used to be uh, Sambaba. Sambaba was one time interior minister under the Jame regime, and uh, unfortunately, along the way, when the journalist was reporting, he had to include the he included Sambaba's name on the reporting, and he was the government said it was a false news, so they decided to arrest us. This was the main reason why they closed the Independent.
We have received evidence with respect to this issue. It was stated that there was a mistaken identity as to which Sambaba it was. Sambaba in the army and Sambaba the minister. So the mistake was that the publication was as if it was the Sambaba who was the minister.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That was the reason. Yeah.
Now, you stated that you were questioned when you went to the paramilitary police. Can you tell us what
Yeah,
kind of questions you were asked when you arrived there?
yeah. It just has to do with the job. Why are you working for the independent? What is your name, your age, and basic details about yourself? And that was it. And I believe the questioning was for the whole staff was done. The arrest of the whole staff was done just to intimidate us. Maybe just to make sure that after that we wouldn't pursue our careers as journalists. But the target was to get Musa Sedikan, Madi Sise, and Lamin Fati, and they succeeded in doing that. This is why they released all of us except those three.
Do you know what eventually happened to those three?
Actually, according to our investigations and sources, we realized that during their detentions, people like Musa Sedikan and Madi were tortured along the way. And in fact, Musa Sedikan, as a result, when he was released from NIA detention, he had to escape and went into exile. And now he's based in the United States. He even had to report it to the Media Foundation, which was widely circulated, showing some scars on his back that indicated he was seriously beaten during that detention period. Even though Madi never spoke about it, but he eventually won an award through the CPJ for his stance for independent journalism. Lamin Fati was charged after that and convicted. Therefore, I cannot recall exactly what was the exact fine or whatsoever.
Can you please tell us what the CPG means?
CPJ is called the Committee to Protect Journalists. It's a press freedom organization that is based in New York here that helps to fight for the rights of journalists around the globe. And they were in those days they were focusing a lot in the Gambia through their Africa representative in Nairobi, I think.
Do you know for how long those three were detained?
I think if I could recall, they were detained for 3 weeks. Musa and Madi. But Lamin Fati, I don't think he was released after that. He had spent some time in detention prior to him being charged and then taken to court.
I assume that the three that were detained were the top brass of the the independent paper, right?
Independent. Yeah, no, the two were the top brass. The two were the top brass. As I said, Madi Sise and Musa Sedikan. Lamin Fati was just a reporter. That was that used to be assigned to cover certain uh, news items, especially when they think that he would be the best person to pick up these kind of stories. Then they send him in to you know to get the story.
So after that particular incident, did the independent paper continue as it was?
No, after that arrest, when they arrest the whole staff, that was the end of the Independent up to date. Until now that I'm talking to you, Independent never came back to to the newsstands. So that was the death of the Independent newspaper. So we all had to look for some other news outlets to continue our careers. So those who cannot continue, they had to look for something else.
Can you tell us
And
what
of
you
course,
did afterwards?
people like me have always been adamant in maintaining my profession as a journalist because it was already indebted in me. So I decided to briefly work for a newspaper called the Daily Express. I didn't even include it on my statement, but I worked for the Daily Express that was founded and edited by a guy called Sam Obi. Sam Obi used to be the RFI correspondent in Banjul, and he used to work for City Limits Radio. So I worked for him briefly between March to September 2006. So from there, I decided to quit because we had some little issues in terms of payments and the like. So I decided to leave. I joined the Daily Observer, which was obviously a pro-government newspaper. But even whereas I was part of the Observer company, I decided to maintain my independence as a journalist because I was a freelance with the Observer. I was not a staff, and my intention was to be independent. I started working with them. I did like 18 months before I got fired.
Coming from a background where the paper you were working from was quite critical of the government to working
Yeah.
for a state owned paper, can you please tell us how that shift was to you?
Yeah, actually, we knew we had a lot of we are journalists, we are connected, we have friends all over. It was just a matter of talking to friends like editors at the Observer and say, hey, I want to work with you. But the first thing they told me, we don't like those kind of critical papers, news items that you publish from the Independent before. So as a matter of survival, I felt that okay, this is not a time I should be picking and choosing. I could have gone to Fourier, I could have gone to the point, but I say, you know what? Okay, it might be a pro-government newspaper. Maybe if I manage with this, it will somehow give me some kind of security. But at the same time, I will manage. I will do my best not to compromise my journalistic principles as a reporter. So I stayed with them. But the best thing when they took me in, Saya was there, and I remember writing stories those days, especially the case of Fatu Jaumane. I even almost had a problem with that, with the then managing director, who is Dr. Sayata, because at some point, uh, Fatu Jaumane was taken to court. Everybody knew that she was charged, she was taken to court, fine. But there was an adjournment, and she appeared in court, and then all the other newspapers reporters wrote Fatu Jamani in court as their headlines. I said, no, this is not the news aspect of this story. She was taken to court to take a plea. That's the news. And she pleaded not guilty. I used that headline to say Fatu Jamani pleads not guilty. Okay, looking at considering the sensitivity of that case, because her case had to do with President Jammeh directly. The then managing director called me into his office and said, "Hey, Buya, why would you write this headline uh, before other reporters?" I said, "Doctor, I'm a journalist. I have to, and this is the newsworthiness of the story. Everybody already knew that he was. This is why I that she pleaded not guilty, and that was the news in the whole story. So at some point, he was like." In Wolof, if you permit me to say, Sumaraka danga wara moytu. So I will just call the operation director of the NIA to come and pick you up. So so
Can you please help us
this
translate that in English?
okay, no, he was like, you just gotta take it easy before I call the operator of the NIA to come and pick you up. They're gonna to jail you. I said, well, I felt this is the best headline I could give. So he was like, okay, just take it easy, slow down. I don't before you sacrifice me, I will sacrifice you first. This is exactly how he told me. He explained it to me. I said, okay. So after that, I had to call Madi Sise, who was the then president of the Gambia Press Union, and I said to him that, okay, this is what has happened. I explained the whole story to him. I said, so watch out. If anything happens to me, know that he is the cause and he is responsible. Just to give you a heads up, because I don't want uh, a similar incident that happened. I don't want the incident that happened to what happened to Chief Mane to happen to me. So I'm just giving you a heads up, so that in case you don't know my whereabouts, uh, if anything that has to do with, if it is anything that has to do with my job, know that Dr. Tal is responsible. And he assured me that he's gonna follow up. He's gonna keep an eye on me and then see how it falls. So I'm very uncomfortable being at the observer, but I manage the situation. The reason why I said I manage the situation was I even going to go to government program, certain programs that has direct connection to the government. So I had to cover court cases, even though it was still delicate. It was kind of, but I think that was a safer place to report on. And the other thing I used to do was to keep copies of the story side, because usually we used to write on paper, and we have secretaries that would type your story and then hand it over to the editor. So any time that I write a story that I felt was kind of would be kind of controversial at the end of when it is published, I just make sure that I keep the copy, not even in my bag. I keep it at home in case they want to charge me for something that I haven't done. I show them the hard copy of what I did to protect myself. This is how I was managing, and then try to help to protect myself in some other way.
The self-preservation that you were telling us you were doing, sorry.
Yeah,
Did it
yeah,
work out for you?
yeah. To some extent, it worked out because after that, Tal was no more in the office because he was fired. Um, a gentleman came who was called Dida. I guess he was Ethiopian, I don't know, Somali or whatsoever, that was resident in the Gambia. He was the then managing director of the Observer. And I remember in March 2008 when I was elected executive board member of the Gambia Press Union, we had an exchange because the Congress was on a weekend, and I remember that Monday. I can't remember the dates, but it was in March 2008. He called me at some point because he wanted some of his editors and staff to be part of the Gambia Press Union, and like in sort to take over the press union so that they can sacrifice it to the government, so that we would be a puppet. But I've been someone who was part of the Observer, and I heard them saying that loud. I was at the same time working with another camp within the GPU to make sure that we elect the right people in the executive board. And they nominated me to be a co-opted member, and we went to the elections with their candidates. I won, and then it turned out to be a problem. He called me on the phone and said, "Why would you allow them to elect you when I chose your seniors to represent us?" I said, "They are not my seniors, and uh, I have a right to be chosen as an independent journalist to represent my people, and there is no way I would learn that, because having the journalists having had confidence in me selecting or electing me into the board meant a lot to me." So he said, "Okay, then you have a new job." I said, "I don't have a job. It's a voluntary job that I'm doing." So he said, "Okay, I will see you on Tuesday." I went to work the following Tuesday, on a Tuesday morning. Even when I stepped to the gate, when I came to the Observer gate, he was like, "Don't even step up. Wait for me down there." I remember him coming with a senior colleague who was very good friend. But in those days, when they want you to be a puppet, if you are not too strong, you cannot resist. And you know, he came with the guy and he started talking to me. He said, "Okay, you know what? You gotta resign from the GPU, or I get you fired from the Observer." I said, "Sir, I chose to be with the GPU. I'm not a politician, I'm a journalist." Then he told me that you are fired. But prior to that, he was criticizing the GPU, saying all sort of things. And the incident, my incident with him, in fact, helped in exposing him a lot, because that was the time we knew his motives, the motives behind him presenting certain candidates for them to take over the leadership of the GPU. This is how I left the Observer after 18 months. I worked for Today newspaper. The same thing, Hamid Adiamo faced some arrests here and there, charges were, leveled against him and all that. But eventually I had to leave Hamid and then focus with the Gambia president because then I voluntarily started what we call the media monitoring unit. In Just to explain a little bit about the media monitoring unit is I was responsible for uh, like searching, like looking after, investigating like press freedom violations and other media developments in the Gambian media. And when the need arises to, I will just make a report or forward it to the Gambia president who was then later Sose. If then they will send it to international press freedom organizations if there was need for publications to expose certain uh, harassments that were going on or violations against journalists. So this is how I focus my entire life with the GPU then.
You told us that you started an initiative that was responsible for investigating press freedom violations. How
Violations,
successful,
yeah.
yes, how successful were these investigations and what were the outcomes of the investigations you did?
Actually, when I started, I think I just did it for 3 months. I started it sometime March, April, May, or April, May, June, something like that. And along the way, I think that was the time when Hamid Adiamo was arrested and charged. Uh, that was the time he was arrested. I think after that, that was our case. Our case came up. That was the time Jame had an interview with the GRTS and made some very bad comments against the leader. And as a union and as a body, we had a meeting prior to writing a press release. We had a meeting, me as a co-opted member, we had Amish, this guy, Sarata Jabi, who was the vice president, Emil Ture and Pamodu Fall. Then Samsar, I think, yeah, Samsar. So as an advisor. So we had a meeting and then I raised a point telling them that look, this is a test case and it's gonna be a turning point for the Gambia Press Union because be we cannot be given the responsibility to represent Gambian journalists, and we have this kind of remarks from a president who is supposed to protect us as citizens, even though we had differences with him, but we equally had rights to be protected like any other ordinary citizen. So the best thing is to write a release and remind him of his responsibilities. Whatsoever comes out of it, let's face it. So it was an intense debate. We had some arguments here and there. Some people said no, but eventually we had to agree on uh, making a statement because a few of us tried to make a point, and make a case to make sure that at least that was because I told them that was the best way to regain confidence in the among the journalists of the Gambia. So by then I was listening with Naitafa Sose because she was in Bamako, and virtually every single day I used to communicate with her through Skype, email, or whatsoever. So I told her, she wrote a statement, we look at it, edited it a little bit because it was very harsh. There was nothing bad, seditious or bad about it. Basically, the statement was just reminding Jammeh of his responsibilities as the president of the Gambia. And we also stated in the statement that being journalists and bona fide citizens of the Gambia and taxpayers, we are also bound to be protected by the same law that protects other civilians without any discrimination. So the release was published, and I could remember it was published on the 12th of June 2009, and around the 15th, that was on a Monday, they started rounding up my colleagues. By then, I was at the same time attending the trial of Hamid Adiyama, who was the then owner and managing editor of Today newspaper. So when I reported to the office, because usually I used to report to the GPU around 10, 11 by then, because I was spending long hours, or sometimes I'll be there till night, just to make sure that anything that has to be done in terms of office work to assist Tafa and by email Ture, I will make sure that it is done. I was more or less like a personal assistant to Tunde, in fact, because we were very close. So the arrest took place, and I on that same day when I came to the office in the afternoon, everybody left. I decided to lock the whole premises and station myself inside. I had an office there. I was still communicating with Lay, updating her with the situation, and she advised me to hide somewhere in her auntie's house. I don't want to mention the location, but I went there, and I felt this was not the right place for me to hide myself, because they can come into that place anytime. So I remember then Auntie Adlet, her mom came in at night, and then we met. She advised me to stay there, but I was like, she even gave me $50. I can remember that helped me a lot when I was in hiding, because from that day I went into hiding for 5 days, from the 15th to the 20th, before I was smuggled to Senegal, to the provinces, then from there to Senegal. So that was part of the stories, and the intimidations we were facing, and the incidents that I've witnessed in the in the in the, in the Gambia as a journalist. But whilst I was in hiding, I was communicating with a brother who used to live with in Old Joshua, and usually every evening they will either escort by Imam Ture, Pamodufal, or any other detainee, and then just to come and look for me. But they will come with soldiers. Some will be standing in one block, and some will be in the other side of the other block, just to make sure that when they see me escaping, they will do whatever they can to either eliminate me or get me arrested. But unfortunately, I knew their mindset, and I went to a cousin who I insisted that I was going home, but he was like, "Boya, you are very stubborn. I know you. You're gonna put yourself into trouble, but I will never let you go home. So you have to be hiding here." So I resorted to spending the night on his couch, until I was lucky. One of my cousins helped me cross the Bara ferry terminal. The ferry went to the provinces the 20th, then the following day, the 21st of June 2009, I was smuggled to Senegal. Even though I was stranded in a border village for about a week before I was able to proceed to Dakar, where I reported to the IFJ after meeting the Tafa Sose. We had meetings with focal points at the German embassy and partners in Senegal, like RADO, Amnesty International. That's how we started a campaign against the Jame regime, to make sure that he get these people released. But they went ahead and charged them for sedition, and they were eventually sentenced. But that notwithstanding, we continued to pressure the government by way of protests, and you know disseminating new press releases to international agencies and regional bodies like the ECOWAS, African Union, UN, and all the bodies to make sure that they mount pressure on the Jammeh regime to release our colleagues. And that helped because that was the main reason why Jammeh released them. But he came as he made it, he did it in a form of pardoning, which was just a pretext to tell, to show the to lie to the Gambians that he just he's just forgiving them. But there was enormous pressure coming from outside.
With all of these things that you've been through and that you've seen your colleagues endure, why do you think the government puts so much pressure on the media in trying to shut them up or limit what they give out to the people?
Yeah, first of all, as a journalist, we see what the ordinary citizen wouldn't see, the ordinary person, a layman wouldn't see on the street. We were serving as the eyes and ears of the Gambian public. And our duty was to make sure that they are well informed to make decisions in terms of who is governing them and how they are governed. So, as because along we were all trained along the way, and we, eventually, of course, if you are trained as a professional, you would know what to do to get the public paying attention to what government is doing or what is happening within their surroundings. And basically, that's our duty. So we felt the government felt that that wasn't the best thing for them to be saying, because they felt if we are against their policies or we succeeded in persuading the public to do away with their policies, that would be the end of the regime. But they never wanted it. And they were never keen in or interested in seeing freedom of expression or rights, liberties, and all other human rights uh, instruments are respected. So that was the problem. Jammeh basically was trying to control everything, but we resisted, and we succeeded in one way or the other, even though it was very tough. But if you look at the time, as like most of my colleagues said, we were the only active civil society body. The Gambia Press Union was the only active civil society body that was doing that kind of job. Yeah, even though we were facing trying times, but we succeeded in by all means. We never had guns, but we had our pens, and we succeeded.
Like they say, the pen is quite powerful. Thank you very
Yeah,
much, Mr. Jame, for answering all of my questions and for bearing with me when I mistaken the Independent for
it's
the
all right.
Standard.
It's
Thank you
it's
very
all right.
much. I'll now hand it over to the commissioners to ask a few questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you. I never understood one thing in the US when they say same difference. I was going to say independent, standard, same difference. Thank you so much, my counsel, and thank you very much, Mr. Jame, for your testimony. Commissioners, if you have any questions, please go. Yes, Commissioner Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Jame, for your testimony, and sorry for what you had to go through. I just want to ask a question regarding your attack in August 2003.
Yes.
Do you believe it was a targeted attack on you based on your profession?
To some extent, yes, because as I said in my earlier testimony, the very moment I told them that I was a journalist with the Independent and I work as a DJ, that make things worse. That make them more furious, and then they even went ahead and then started punching me. So that shows the seriousness of the matter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, Mr. Jama, you're off the screen. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, you're back on.
I'm getting it.
Are there
Yeah.
any closing remarks that you would wish to make? If so, please proceed.
Yeah, actually, before I close, there is some aspect of it that I wanted to relay because even whereas I escaped and went to Senegal after doing all those campaigns, I remember I used to work for a radio called Radio Alternative Voice for Gambians, which was an exile media outlet that was set up and initiated by Ami Diouf Cole, as she is commonly known Cole. I worked for them for 4 years, but at some point my life was on the thread. I remember having a friend who used to work at the Senegalese Interior Ministry, and at some point I used to visit him in his family home. We've had a lot of exchanges about security matters between the Gambia and Senegal, and him being a military officer and someone working at the interior ministry, he at some point advised me to leave Senegal because that was not a safe haven for me, having lived there for 4 years. And at some point, I remember when CD Bayo was making that pronouncement of establishing a government, an interim government to come and take over overthrow Yaya Jammeh or whatsoever. I was trying to send an article to one of the news outlets that I used to work for. And I got an attack. I was attacked by a few young men. They almost killed me because they were fighting with me. Imagine uh, me fighting with 6 young men. They overpowered me. They went to an extent of throwing blocks on me, but I decided to escape. I had to run for my life. Um, After that, I think that having looked at the prior incidents that happened on the kidnap of Yaya Damfa and others who were there before me, so I felt it wasn't the right place for me to be. And having considered the advice I was given by a security personnel at the Interior Ministry in Senegal, this is how I decided to come to the United States through a fellowship with UNESCO chair uh, at the Institute for Comparative Human Rights at the University of Connecticut. This is how I moved there. But my work never stopped in the Gambia because that radio alternative voice was we were getting news from reporters inside the Gambia to broadcast it, produce and broadcast it via online for Gambian audience to have the news that they can have locally. So that has added a lot to my. And in terms of how to call it, sufferings, I've suffered psychologically, mentally, especially during the years. I almost became homeless in Senegal, but I just had to manage. I was gonna be a mentally sick person by now. Hadn't been, I haven't insisted on resorting to spiritual uh, measures by way of praying to God to make sure that He keeps me alive and healthy until a day like this. But having said that, all I want to say, especially to Gambian journalists, is that let's stay firm. There's a brighter future. We still don't have everything that we want. We still we still looking forward to the new dispensation to do something better, something different that we will all be proud of, and we will forge ahead. Gambia is ours. If we don't fight for the Gambia, we will always be having this kind of situation repeating itself, and we wouldn't want to be going back to this. As you guys, as you, use- you as the slogan says, never again, never. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Amma, for those kind words. And I hope we do our best, if not for our generation, for the generation of the baby who has been participating the last few minutes in our hearing. We could hear the baby from the background. And I think that's good message that we do our best
That's my son.
not to have never again a situation here.
Yeah.
But Mr. Jame, thank you very much indeed. And give the baby a big hug for us for participating.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
If we don't have anything to do, that would end the day for us today. We meet tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Sure. Thank you all very much. Meeting is adjourned.
ñoo ñëw ak yéen rek skincare plus nara jàkkaarloo ak yéen waxtaan ak yéen tuuti rek si suñu tube suñu baax emuñ rek ci ay diw waaye comme ni ngeen ko xamee rek dañoo yëngu ci ay tube te yënguwuñ nag si just any tube suñ tube bu nekk 5 star jas na la 5 star jas na mooy jas na bi gën a pire moom la ñoo tube palmaan bi gën a fort moom la ñoo liggéeyee buñ demee Bamako ñun duñ dem ci marché bi rek buub indi déedéet dañ leen a jox suñu specs ne leen nii lañ ko bëggee nay lañ ko bëggee fóot bi nangami fóot lañ bëgga pour mu mun a set waaw cuubi skincare déedéet doo ko sol mu di la taxa all over the place ci gàttal ñun rek si cuub dara du doy day des not only dañoo cuub bot bu la neexee ñu cuubal la ba pare nag ñawal la ñaw fi mu gën a setee nag rek la ñoo fulee ñetti ñawkat lañ am nañ ñawkati simple nga xam ne xoppati rek mbaa def sa taille basse def sa dagit def sa roba amul benn dawme am nañ koo xam ne moo ñoo dawme jigéen den am nañ tamit special ñawkat boo xam ne ñawi góor rek la ñoo defal nga bugg a sa his and hers muy korité muy tabaski mbaa muy ngénte muy takka mbaa nga bugg a rek def sa yëkka bu baax a baax daagul ba ñëw skincare plus ñu dimbali la tànnal la cuub fam gën a baaxee ndax sa yëkka gën a foor lii nga ne lan xoolal bi takka la skincare fii la fu léegi yéen tey we're not all about skin we are skin care and the plus does come in so many different ways Cubantu wuñ de dañ cubam saf-saf
Sampai